This is a follow-up to the ratios video, focusing specifically on percent and percent change. These two concepts are special types of ratios, and they sound like they're the same thing, but they're not. So I will talk about them separately. First, percent. A percent is a number that indicates a part of a whole. Since it's a ratio, we can express it as part of the whole over the whole. So your grade at the end of the semester is going to be a percent, calculated as the points you earned over all the points available in the course. Your phone battery percent is the current charge over the whole possible charge. As we work with data in a spreadsheet and want to express something as a percent, we need to ask two things. The first question is about setting up the percent formula. We need to know, what is the whole? So what are we going to divide by? The second question is, how are decimal places being adjusted? You know that if you divide part of a number by its whole, like points earned by total number of points, the outcome will be a fraction. We have to multiply that number by 100 to move the decimal 2 places to the right to get the percent. In a spreadsheet, we can do that by adding times 100 inside the formula, or we can designate a cell or a column as a percent and let the spreadsheet automatically do the times 100 for us. Let's work through this with our Olympic medals spreadsheet that includes the country totals. In column F, we want to calculate the percent of all the medals given out at the Olympics that each country earned. Let's label the column percent of all medals. The first question we need to ask and answer is, what is the whole? This would be the total number of medals. If we highlight this column and look in the bottom right, Excel tells us the total, 1080. So the formula is going to be equals sign, the total number divided by 1080 times 100. We can then copy this formula into all the other cells in the column. We see that the United States earned about 10% of all the available medals, and China 8%, and so on. In the next column, let's do the same thing, but this time tell Excel to do the decimal adjustment for us. So let's label the column again, type the formula, but leave off the times 100. Copy the formula to the rest of the column. Then highlight the column and in the Excel ribbon, find the button that says Percent Style. Or in this drop-down menu, select Percentage. We can adjust how many decimal places we see in each column. So that's how you work with percents. Now let's turn to percent change. Percent change is most often used when we want to explain how much something changed over time. Things like population growth, stock market growth or decline, inflation, the growth in infection rates, these are often expressed as percent change. The formula for calculating percent change is new value minus old value divided by old value. It's a comparison of change and the starting value. Because of the order of operations you remember from math class, we want to make sure that the subtraction happens first, before the division. So let's put the subtraction in parentheses. Remember the acronym NO, new minus old over old. Let's think about this in simple terms first. What is the percent change in your age over the last 5 years? Let's pretend that you're 20 years old today. So you were 15 years old 5 years ago. Percent change is new value, so 20, minus old value, so 15, over old value, 15. 5 over 15 is 0.3333333. Since it's a percent, we need to adjust decimal places. So if you're 20 years old today, over the last 5 years you aged 33%. But look what happens if we change your age. Let's say that you're 25 years old today, and we want to know by what percent you aged in the last 5 years. The formula is 25 minus 20 over 20. 5 over 20 is 0.25 or 25%. So if you're 25 years old, you aged 25% over the last 5 years. Because percent change is always relative to the starting value, even if the change itself stays the same, like an increase of 5 years, the percent change is going to be different because the starting value is different. In our case, 15 years versus 20. Let's look at a quick example of this in Excel. This is a data set of enrollment in different schools at KU in 2011 and 2020. We want to know, what is the percent change in enrollment over this decade? Label the column. The formula is open parentheses, new, so the 2020 value, minus the old value, close parentheses, divided by the old value. Copy this to the rest of the column and designate this as a column of percents. And voila! We see that the business school grew by about 130%, but the journalism school shrank by 11%. KU as a whole declined by about 2%. Interesting numbers that you could write a whole interesting story about. And that's percent and percent change, two very powerful types of ratios that journalists and other public communicators use all the time. I hope to see you using these numbers in the work you do in this class.